In 1830, during Japan's Edo period, a young girl suffered at the hands of her father. Her older brother, just a child himself, could only watch, helpless. The man dragged his daughter by the hair while she called out for Genta, but all he could do was stand there, frozen in fear. She was locked away in a dark, lonely storage room. A single flower inside caught the dim light from a crack in the roof, a small sign of hope in her isolation. When she was finally let out, Genta ran to the storage room during heavy rain, only to find that she had vanished. Panicked, he chased after her and found her standing on a bridge. Her bandage had slipped, revealing a red eye that looked almost unnatural. He felt guilty for not helping her, but she told him to stay quiet so he wouldn't get hurt too. But Genta had enough. He was done living in fear. That night, with nothing but the clothes on their backs, the siblings ran away together. They wandered for days, finding shelter in an old broken-down building to escape the cold rain. Genta did his best to look after his sister, showing kindness at every turn, while she stayed strong despite everything they had been through. One night, just as he was about to drift off to sleep, a man appeared and offered them a place to stay. When Genta woke up, he found himself being carried by the man. His sister, now rested and smiling, seemed at ease with him. The man helped Genta stand, and together they walked toward a small village. He explained that this place was home to blacksmiths who forged katanas. Soon, they arrived at his house, where his daughter ran up to greet him excitedly. Genta clutched his sister's hand tightly as the girl curiously asked who they were. Her father simply said they were children in need of a home and that they would be part of their family now. Overjoyed, the girl introduced herself as Shirayuki. Genta quickly gave his name, while his sister hesitated shyly before speaking. Shirayuki was eager to befriend them, her warmth almost overwhelming to the siblings, who weren't used to such kindness. That night, as the man cleaned his katana, Genta couldn't sleep. Watching him, he finally asked if he was a samurai. The man shook his head and explained that he was a sentinel, someone who protects what's important. Genta listened closely, the glint of the blade catching his eye as the first light of dawn appeared. Meanwhile, Shirayuki had woken up early, carrying a bucket outside while Genta stayed inside, practicing with a wooden stick. Later, Shirayuki took them to the river for a bath, where Suzanne met a girl her age. They held hands and jumped into the water together, laughing. Despite all they had been through, Genta and Suzanne slowly started enjoying their new life. By the afternoon, they were feeling more at home. During a playful moment, the new girl teased Shirayuki about always eating dango and how she should try some vegetables for a change. But Shirayuki just laughed, saying her mother made the best dango. Right then, the girl's mother called her and she ran off excitedly to tell her about her fun day. Watching this, Genta asked about Shirayuki's mother, Yokazi. He learned that it was Yokazi who had given permission for him and his sister to stay in the village, but he had never met her. She only lived in the shrine. Shirayuki explained that her mother was the Itsuki-haim, a sacred priestess who could not interact with ordinary people. Only the village chief and her father, as the sentinel, could see her. It had been years since Shirayuki last saw her mother, something she deeply regretted. But instead of dwelling on it, she called her friends to continue their walk. 2 years passed. By 1833, Genta was training every morning with the sword under the guidance of Majaro. Though the man always had a friendly smile, he never went easy on Genta, knocking him down repeatedly to remind him there was always room for improvement. After all, the only way to get stronger was to keep pushing forward. Genta was well aware of his struggles, but no matter how much he trained, he felt stuck, as if he hadn't improved at all. This frustration weighed on him. Matoharu, noticing his concerns, reassured him that progress wasn't always obvious. Even if things seemed the same, change was happening little by little. With that, the training session ended, and Matoharu left to take care of other responsibilities. His daughter soon came running over, handing him his katana. Afterward, Shirayuki playfully patted Genta's head, teasing him about his loss. He wasn't amused and told her to stop joking around. She countered by saying she was just acting like an older sister, but Genta quickly reminded her that he was the older one. Shirayuki, however, argued that she was the more mature of the two, making her the real big sister in spirit. Before the conversation could continue, Suzanne appeared, rubbing her eyes after just waking up. For some reason, Genta looked completely flustered. Shirayuki seemed to understand, but simply smiled and invited him to have breakfast with his sister. Years passed, and Jinta found himself in a formal meeting. A woman acknowledged his exceptional demon hunting abilities, but he simply saw it as fulfilling his role as the village's sentinel. The discussion shifted to the latest demon encounter. Jinta revealed that this time the creature had disguised itself as a human to infiltrate Kano village unnoticed. This revelation caused immediate concern. Someone pointed out that such an incident might be connected to the fate of the village princess. Legend said that demons, who already lived for centuries, could achieve true immortality by consuming the flesh of an amiko. Another attendee dismissed it as mere folklore, but others weren't so sure. The previous Itsuki hime, Yokazi, had fallen victim to a demon, and the beast was only defeated because Matoharu sacrificed himself. The mysterious woman present speculated that the demons were now targeting Yara, the sacred sword passed down through generations of Itsuki-hime. The weapon, crafted using the finest techniques, had remained flawless for over 100 years, making it a prize worth coveting. Despite the growing concern, Kiyomasa, the son of one of the men present, dismissed the threat. He believed there was no reason to worry since the Itsuki-hime had 2 sentinels protecting her. He took the opportunity to jab at Jinta, calling him a braggart who thought he was some kind of legendary warrior just because he carried a sword. Jinta shot him a glare, but before things could escalate, the veiled woman reminded them that this was not the place for petty argument. Kiyomasa himself was also a sentinel, and such behavior was beneath them. With that, the meeting was adjourned, and everyone left, except for Jinta and the mysterious woman. Once the others were gone, she removed her veil, revealing her face without hesitation. She admitted how much she disliked the formalities she had to follow whenever they met. Jinta, now more relaxed, addressed her by her real name, Shirayuki. She smiled and told him she would try not to rely on him so much anymore. Jinta was confused by her words. Protecting the Itsuki-hime was a sentinel's duty after all. Blushing slightly, Shirayuki mentioned that Suzune had come to visit and suggested Jinta go see for himself. He moved the barrier to peek inside and saw his younger sister sleeping peacefully. He was immediately concerned. This was a sacred place, and outsiders weren't supposed to be here. If she was caught, she could be accused of blasphemy. Shirayuki, however, didn't seem worried. To her, Suzune had only come to see her brother, who was rarely home because of his duties. Jinta agreed that it was unfortunate, but he still wasn't comfortable breaking the rules. Gently, he woke his sister, smiling as he reminded her that the shrine was off limits to her. As the meeting wraps up, Genta heads toward the forest to carry out his duty as a sentinel. Just as he's about to leave, Kiyomasa calls out to him, but Genta ignores him. Frustrated, Kiyomasa grabs him roughly, demanding to know what's going through his mind. He's just learned that Genta knows about his upcoming marriage to Byakuya, and he wants an honest answer. But Genta, keeping his emotions locked away, simply says he's happy if the princess is happy, and if the village remains at peace. Kiyomasa isn't fooled. He knows Genta loves her. But without any real response from his rival, there's nothing left to argue about. Stepping into the forbidden forest, Genta quickly finds himself in danger. A sudden attack nearly takes him out, his opponent clearly believing they'd caught him off guard. But Genta reacts fast, dodging just in time. He had expected the demon to have backup, but the creature tells him that its partner is busy handling something back in Kano. With no choice but to fight, Genta engages in hand-to-hand combat, managing to land a strike on the demon's shoulder with his katana. However, its skin is too tough, and the blade doesn't cut through. The demon counters with a brutal swing, and though Genta avoids the full impact, he still takes a hit, leaving a deep gash across his face. Blood trickles down, but he doesn't falter. Instead, he uses the opening to throw a powerful kick, creating just enough distance to launch another attack. This time, his blade strikes true, slicing clean through the demon's arm. The creature roars in pain but remains standing, unfazed. With only one arm left, it attempts another attack, but Genta barely manages to evade. The ground is now stained red from the demon's severed limb, yet it simply picks up its lost arm, grinning. Rather than panicking, the beast seems amused, enjoying the fight as much as it had hoped. The demon takes a moment to reflect, commenting on the difference between humans and demons. While demons can live for centuries, humans only get a short time. but they pass down their skills and dreams, defying time itself. It's something the demon finds intriguing. Then, turning its attention back to Genta, it wonders why he fights so fiercely. What's his true goal in wielding a sword? Without hesitation, Genta makes his stance clear. He fights for his people, for those he swore to protect. Anyone who threatens that will meet the sharp edge of his blade. Meanwhile, back in Kano, trouble is brewing. A demon has entered Suzune's home and asks her a strange question. Does she know what she really is? Suzune, caught off guard, answers that the creature before her is obviously a demon. But the intruder smirks and reveals something shocking. She too is a demon. The words shake her, but there's no time for an explanation. The demon's gaze shifts to the clothes Suzune clings to, Genta's clothes. It assumes that her deep love for her brother is what keeps her feeling human, and it's clear that Genta must be a strong protector to inspire such devotion. Suzune, despite her confusion, feels warmth at the mention of her brother. She eagerly moves closer to the demon, confirming that Genta means everything to her. But then, the creature kneels, speaking in a softer tone. There's someone out there who wants to hurt Genta, it says. If Suzune truly cares for her brother, she should use her hidden power to help him. Suzune asks about the powers the demon mentioned, but instead of explaining, the creature simply tells her to follow along, assuring her that demons never lie. It promises that no harm will come to her, but Suzune isn't convinced. Even if the demon won't hurt her, it could still hurt her brother, and she refuses to take that risk. Seeing her hesitation, the demon touches her forehead, triggering a vision in her mind. Suddenly, Suzune sees something shocking: Shirayuki and Kiyomasa together in an intimate moment. Disgusted and overwhelmed by the strange magic, she recoils. The demon tells her that she has the ability to share visions of the future, though Suzune refuses to believe what she just saw. The creature urges her to come and see for herself, and this time, Suzune hesitantly reaches out to the demon. Meanwhile, Genta is locked in a fierce battle. Though he managed to land a solid hit earlier, the fight has shifted in the demon's favor. After a brief pause, Genta demands to know why the demon is attacking Humes. The creature responds that demons exist for a purpose, and its purpose lies in this place. No matter how much it may want to change its fate, fighting against its nature is impossible. Hearing this, Genta makes it clear that he will show no mercy. The demon acknowledges that this is the smartest decision. After all, allowing a monster capable of consuming other demons and growing stronger to roam free would be foolish. With that, the creature's right arm suddenly swells to 3 times its size. A single punch from this monstrous limb is enough to rip Genta's arm clean off. Despite the excruciating pain, Genta refuses to back down. He tries to continue his attack, but the demon bites down on his blade, snapping it in half. Panic fills Genta's eyes, but pure instinct takes over. He snatches the broken blade mid-air and drives it deep into the demon's chest, bringing the beast crashing to the ground. Weakened and unable to rise, the demon admits that its mission is complete. It reveals that its companion has the power to see the future and has witnessed something terrifying. 170 years from now, a powerful deity ruling over demons will arrive in Kano. That vision led them to this village, where they discovered the most promising being of their kind. That is why the demon came here in the first place. Genta's heart sinks as he realizes the demon is talking about his sister. Before he can react, the creature pulls a final trick. It uses its severed arm to grab him, catching him off guard. Recalling Genta's earlier words about protecting his loved ones, the demon asks what he would do if one of those people no longer deserved his protection. If that day ever comes, who will he strike down? Back in the village, Kiyomasa takes advantage of the peaceful moment to spend time with his soon-to-be wife. But Shirayuki can't shake her worry about Genta, who is still in the taboo forest. Annoyed, Kiyomasa remarks that she must be wondering if Genta can hear what they're doing. The comment stings, and Shirayuki remembers a time when Genta stood by her side, hand in hand, promising to follow the path of Madaharu. With that memory fresh in her mind, she sheds a tear, but reminds herself that she made this choice for Kano's safety. Determined to follow through with her decision, she slowly removes her ceremonial attire and moves closer to Kiyomasa, who steps back, startled by her sudden change in behavior. Yet, Shirayuki gently holds his face and kisses him. At that moment, the demon proves to Suzune that the vision was real, because now Suzune is watching it unfold right before her eyes. Meanwhile, Genta forces himself to stand, muttering that he isn't dead yet. Looking around, he realizes the demon has vanished. Without wasting another second, he sprints toward the village, desperate to protect his sister. But as he reaches the outskirts, he sees flames rising in the distance. Kano is burning. Despite the devastation, he pushes forward, knowing he must reach Suzune before it's too late. Back at the demon's hideout, Suzune demands answers from Shirayuki. She had always believed the princess truly loved her brother. She had done everything she could to keep Genta by her side, so why had things turned out like this? Visions of her brother running through the burning city flash through Suzune's mind. The betrayal she just witnessed was the final straw. She had always adored Genta, so much so that she held herself back, never growing up fully, just so she could always be his little sister. But now, Shirayuki had shattered everything. The princess, despite her regret, stood firm in her decision. The only way to honor Kano's legacy was to take on this new role, even if it meant betraying Genta's love. Suzune couldn't accept that. To her, Shirayuki had stolen the one thing she had always dreamed of and thrown it away for the sake of strangers. Overwhelmed with grief and fury, the child's body trembled. The pain twisted inside her, and in a moment of sheer agony, she ripped off the bandage covering her right eye. What lay beneath wasn't human anymore. A dark energy pulsed from the demon's presence within her, and her posture shifted unnaturally as the transformation took hold. The princess tried to reason with her, but Suzune had heard enough. The demon's voice whispered in her ear, feeding her anger. Genta had given everything for a woman who had so easily abandoned him. Wasn't it only fair to make her pay for it? The thought took hold, and before she even realized it, darkness filled the room. The power within her lashed out, knocking the human couple to the ground. Kiyomasa moved first, scrambling to grab the sacred sword Yurai, but the more experienced demon intervened, sending him flying across the room. The blade tumbled from his grasp, landing right at Suzune's feet. Her mentor's voice echoed in her mind, suggesting that Shirayuki would be honored to die by the sword her people had worshipped for generations. Without hesitation, the demon carried Kiyomasa away, leaving Suzune and the princess alone. A wicked grin spread across Suzune's face as she picked up the blade. This was going to be fun. Genta finally arrived, breathless and desperate. He rushed to Shirayuki, pulling her into a tight embrace, but it was already too late. Just as he held her close, her head separated from her body. Suzune stood before him, holding the severed head in her hands, her eyes gleaming with twisted joy. She welcomed her brother home, delighted to see him again. Genta's mind shattered. Memories of the woman he had loved flooded his thoughts, playing like a cruel film before his eyes. But his sister wasn't done. Laughing, she plunged the sacred blade into Shirayuki's body over and over again, each stab a mockery of everything he had fought to protect. Consumed by rage and disbelief, Genta raised his sword and swung at Suzune. But she was too fast. Dodging effortlessly, she shifted between the innocent little girl he had always known and the monstrous being she had become. Genta hesitated. Was this truly still his sister? Why had she done this? But Suzune simply tilted her head, confused by his sadness. She had done this for him. Shirayuki had betrayed him, so she had taken care of it. Wasn't that what he wanted? With a bright, childlike smile, she suggested they go home now. After all, she had spent so much energy fixing everything for him. But Genta couldn't answer. He could barely breathe. His world had been destroyed, and the sister he once knew was gone forever. Genta couldn't believe what Suzune had done. She turned her back on the people who raised them, the ones who treated them like family. And now, after killing Shirayuki, all she could think about was how tired she was, wanting to go home like nothing had happened. That's when it hit him. His little sister wasn't there anymore. The Suzune he once knew was gone. The weight of that truth crushed him, and for a moment madness took over. He swung his blade at her, but even as he did, there was no real conviction behind it. His hands trembled, his mind spiraled. What was he even fighting for anymore? His laugh came out bitter and broken, full of despair. Everything he ever cared about had slipped away. But then, as his arm throbbed with an unnatural energy, a new thought took root. Hatred. If nothing else, he still had that. Hatred for everything and everyone. Suzune panicked, scrambling to explain. She didn't mean to do anything wrong. She only killed Shirayuki because she thought it was what Genta wanted. He cut her off coldly. She finally understood. Her brother was leaving her too, just like everyone else. He was supposed to be different. He was supposed to stay. If he was really going to abandon her, then what was the point of anything? She snapped. Power surged through her, wild and uncontrollable. The shrine trembled under the force of her rage as she fired blasts of dark energy in every direction. Then, in a final act of madness, she lunged at Genta, her hand stabbing deep into his stomach. But when she tried to pull away, she couldn't. Genta had done it on purpose, locking his muscles to trap her in place. His grip tightened, and he raised his arm. A memory flickered Suzune back when she was just a little girl, pressing her forehead against his, trusting him completely. But this time, there was no kindness. His fist came down with all the strength he had, smashing into her without mercy. Then another blow, even stronger than the first. But before he could finish it, the demon that had corrupted Suzune stepped in, taking the full impact to protect her. Blood dripped from the creature's lips, yet it still managed to smile. Suzune staggered to her feet, heading toward the exit of the shrine. She turned back one last time. She didn't care about anything anymore. If the world had taken everything from her, then she'd return the favor. She would tear everything down. People, kingdoms, the entire world. And one day she would come back. That she promised. Then she was gone. The demon, even in its dying moments, laughed. Its mission was complete. When Genta, still seething, demanded to know why, it answered without hesitation. It had seen the future. The world would change. The light of men would push away the darkness, and demons would fade into mere legends. But now, thanks to Suzune, their existence would never be forgotten. With its final words, the demon crumbled into dust. And as if mourning the tragedy, the sky opened up and rain began to fall over Kano village. Genta stood there, holding Shirayuki's lifeless body, the weight of failure pressing down on him. All those years, all those promises, it had all led to this. His duty as a sentinel had ended, and he had failed. As the rain poured, drowning out all other sounds, he let out a cry of pure anguish. By dawn, Kano was nothing but ruins. He sat outside, tying his sandals, his mind fogged with memories of happier days, his family laughing together in the yard. But that was long gone. The village chief was waiting for him. Genta didn't hesitate. He told the man he was leaving. He had no home here anymore. There was only one path left, to prepare for the battle ahead. One day, the demon god would return, and when that time came, he would be ready. The chief hesitated, then asked a simple question. Was he really going to let his anger drive him to kill his own sister? Or was there still something else left in his heart? Genta admitted that Suzune was his little sister, someone he had always cared for. But he had also loved Shirayuki, and losing her like that, helpless, unable to do anything, was unbearable. A dark voice whispered inside him, pushing him toward revenge. He wanted to silence it, to stop himself from falling completely into hatred. If there was even the slightest chance of ending this without more bloodshed, he wanted to take it. The village chief, watching him closely, had expected him to fully embrace the path of a demon, but seeing that Genta still held on to some part of his old self gave the old man a bit of hope. Without another word, the chief handed him the yorai, the sacred sword. He asked Genta to draw it. The moment he did, the chief announced that from now on, Genta would no longer be just a warrior. He was the new bearer of the legendary blade. With that came a change, not just in status but in name. From this day forward, he would be known as Guinea. Guinea didn't feel like he deserved such an honor, but the village leader reminded him that the noble line of Itsuzi Heim was gone. If the sword remained untouched, it would just gather dust in the shrine, forgotten. At least now, in the hands of a sentinel, it would serve a purpose. And maybe, just maybe, Shirayuki's soul could finally rest in peace. The old chief then knelt before him, his voice filled with regret. He had known all along how deeply Gini loved Shirayuki, but he had also known Kiyomasa's feelings for her. Though their marriage was meant to strengthen Kano, the truth was, it had been arranged for the happiness of the chief's son. Gini, despite everything, didn't hold a grudge. Instead, he reassured the chief, easing the weight of guilt the man had carried for so long. Before parting ways, the chief made one final request. If Gini ever returned to Kano, he should build a shrine in his honor, a place to remember the warrior he had become, a reminder that even though people and villages may not last as long as demons, their actions could outlive them. This shrine would be called the Genta Shrine. Just as he was preparing to leave, Chitose appeared. To her, Genta hadn't changed. He was still the person she had always known. With a small smile, he promised to come back one day and told her to save some isamoka for him when that time came. As he stepped into the unknown, the sun burned against his skin, forcing him to shield his eyes. For the first time, he understood why demons clung so fiercely to their purpose. But he kept that realization to himself. Time passed. 170 years. An eternity for some, a fleeting moment for others. He finally arrived at another shrine where Amiko stood deep in thought. To her, the past had always felt distant, something that had no real connection to her life. But the sorrow in this man's eyes told a different story, and soon she would come to understand the long and painful journey he had endured for all those years. That's the end of the first episode. Subscribe to our channel for upcoming episodes.